Happy Spiritual Sunday. Here we are back again in person in the Boca Center. Yes, good to be back. It was great to go, good to come back. So I'll be sharing a little of that with you today. But let's start as we usually do. Something from Karen's book, Simple Light. So I open it up like this. Two short passages I want to read to you. First one, when Abraham entertained a stranger, meaning Abraham the patriarch, he would do so under a palm tree. He would watch the leaves on the tree closely. If the leaves drooped, he knew the person was negative. If they went up, he knew the person was positive. We all need to pray every day that God will open our eyes to truly see what is positive and what is negative, and our ears to hear and understand the message that is intended for us. Karen often liked to quote King David in Psalms where he says, they have ears, or they have eyes, but they don't see. They have ears and they don't hear. Because if you think about it, what makes us confused in life? Why we give you, if I give you a choice between rat poison, and a piece of fish, would you be a difficult choice? Not at all. Why? Because you would see clearly what's poison and what's not. So every time we come to a challenge, what does it really mean? Or a confusion? It means we can't see which choice is best for us. Which is the path of the light? Which is the path of the illusion, the darkness? So Abraham is teaching us, interestingly, as we'll speak a little more today, that if you open your eyes, as I often go back to, the Zohar says that we want to be using the eyes of our heart, because the heart is the essence of our soul. And if you open up the eyes of your soul, then you'll know the choice that's the path of the light, even if it's not so comfortable. And you'll know which is the path of the darkness and the chaos, even if in the beginning it looks like it's easy, good, and the best choice. The second paragraph, you are totally capable of rising above negative situations in your life. The more difficult your challenges, the higher you can elevate spiritually, and the more the Creator must add to your spiritual weights, knowing full well that you will be able to lift them. So in essence, if we understand our potential, like Karen said, we're capable to handle anything because we're beings of light. And if you can shine your light properly, then there's nothing that of a dark nature, darkness that can't be taken away. But we have to understand that the challenge is not punishment for our negative actions. Not always. Sometimes, yes. Sometimes people who are not on a spiritual path, who are not making an effort to grow and challenge themselves to be more kind and compassionate and generous and humble and forgiving, etc., yes, then the challenges in their life are punishment until they wake up and realize that they are pure beings of light. The only reason we have challenges in life is because we don't believe we are beings of light. Or we don't believe, as we'll talk about, interesting how it's all coming together, we don't believe that we're capable of the potential that the Creator gave us. Because some people don't even believe in the potential the Creator gave us. So let's start with our affirmation. Those of you online, it's here in front of you. Those of you here, and we say it together because we want to keep raising our consciousness to a higher level of our potential and a higher level of certainty and trust that we've been given the power of the Creator. Because if you really understood you had the power of the Creator and responsible for bringing that power of the Creator into positive, constructive use in this world, we would all be much more conscious about how we speak, how we talk, what we do, what we say, what we think. We'd be much more careful. So the point of the affirmation is to keep reminding us that we are pure beings of light and that we are responsible for our life and we have all powers to make things better. So let's say it together. Consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. I commit myself to behave with greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. And that ultimately becomes the greatest challenge. We're willing to do greater love, kindness, and compassion towards some people. But that's not our affirmation. Our affirmation is all people. And in today's world, unfortunately, I see it getting more and more difficult because those things we call our buttons are emotional, previously created buttons of whatever, fear, anger, judgment, resentment, guilt, hatred, whatever, are being pushed more powerfully because we're so close to the end of our process collectively. And once the emotional button is pushed, it's hard to pause and be objective, to think consciously in those moments. But this is what you and I are learning here in Spiritual Sunday and in the Kabbalah Center in general. So let me start with a little story. So I grew up in a log cabin in the Midwest. No, just kidding. I grew up in a log cabin in Redondo Beach. No, it wasn't a log cabin. I grew up in Redondo Beach, California. My grandmother and grandfather had a house in Hermosa Beach. So after they passed and after my mother passed, my siblings and I took over the house. And one of my brothers decided he wanted to learn to be a contractor. So he hired me as his assistant to start remodeling my grandmother's house. So the first thing, this is a house probably built, in the 1940s. So the walls were made of what's called lath and plaster. It wasn't drywall. It was like literally strips of wood, slats of wood, and then plastered over. So it was a solid plaster wall. Okay, so he wanted we were going to strip down all the paint or whatever it was down to the wall, and then we're going to start over and a few other things. The point being, so here I'm taking a torch, I'm taking a scraper, and I'm scraping the wall, and I see, let's say, one layer of paint, and I scrape through that, another layer of paint, and I scrape through that, couple layers of wallpaper, and I scrape through that. There must have been 7 or 8 layers of paint and wallpaper on that wall till we could get down to the lath and plaster, the original. So the reason I'm sharing this story with you is to go back to fundamentally what we learn here as an important foundation to our consciousness. When the Bible says we're created in the image and likeness of God, you ever wonder what that really meant? I remember when I learned it, and I was raised in California, a Reformed Jew. Okay, so I wasn't so studious. I was more interested in playing baseball. But here and there, these things would stick out in my mind. If we're in the image and likeness of God, and I would look around in the class, and I say, well, does God look like me or Joe? Does God look like me or Mary or Miriam? Or what does God look like if we're in the image and likeness of God? Of course, once I came to Kabbalah, you come to understand all the details. It doesn't mean in a physical way. What it means is we're all created with a piece of the Creator inside of us. And therefore, we are essentially in the image and likeness of the Creator, which means we are the image, let's do it in our language, we're in the image of the light, and we have the power of creation, which is the power of the Creator within us. Unfortunately, most people don't realize that. And therefore, even religious people, okay, we want to pray to be nice people, we want to pray for this, that, and the other thing, but in general religious terms, do people really understand what the Kabbalists have been teaching us for thousands of years? That because the Creator put a piece of itself in us, we start, one, with the power of creation. Every thought, every word, every action creates. So when you and I look at our life individually, and then we look at the world collectively, we have to realize I created my world. I created everything that ever came about in this lifetime. I created whatever I did or experienced in a past life. I create as a collective piece of the humanity on earth today. We create what the world looks like. But we don't think that. We don't understand that power. So we allow negative thoughts, negative words to just come out here and there. And it's like, oh, well, wasn't so bad. It wasn't a big thing. Or maybe you think you're only thinking it, right? So you're thinking, not saying it. But the power of thought is what drives our words, which drives creation. So even our thoughts are creative. So a person holding negative thoughts about someone or something is causing in their own mind to create an image of that person, that situation as negative. Like you and I, like Karen just said when I read to you. Great, I put the page away already. Challenges are not negative. Challenges are our opportunity to see through the external, to see through the physical things going on, the physical circumstances, and realize it's our soul saying, hey, wake up and free me from the bondage you put me in by handling this challenge as the light of the Creator. And so when we say we're in the image and likeness of the Creator and we are given the power of creation, what it's really saying is you and I, from the time of Adam and Eve, we took our pure and perfect soul, that pure and perfect light and peace of the Creator, and we've covered it with layers of negativity, like the walls in my grandmother's house. A layer of paint, a layer of wallpaper, another layer, and this, except in our case, it's a layer of anger, a layer of judgment, a layer of guilt, a layer of insecurity, a layer of greed, a layer of fear, a layer of jealousy. Our job in this world is not to create perfection. The Creator already created perfection. Our job is to reveal perfection by taking away the covers, the veils, the curtains, whatever name you want to give them, of our jealousy, ego, insecurity, fear, etc. It's like the story of Michelangelo. If you know, Michelangelo, great sculptor, right? We usually think, wow, look what he created. Of his own words, what he said, he would look at a piece of rock and he would see inside the rock the statue that was already there. And what he did as an artist, as a sculptor, is he took away what didn't belong. He took away the layers of the paint and the wallpaper and this to reveal the statue, the statue that was already there, waiting to be revealed. So we came into this world simply to do that. Remove all the layers. So, the key issue, if you will, is the challenge or the fight from the time of Adam and Eve between the soul, which is perfect, and the body, which seeks for itself. The soul wants to share with everyone because it realizes there was only one Creator. There was created only one human being that was then split into Adam and Eve, and then has been split into over 8 billion bodies today. It's the body that causes us the discord. I mean, most of us, okay, you look in the mirror, you see yourself, and yeah, of course, here and there we're going to say, oh, you could have done this and this and this and this, but you still feel it's yourself. So you don't just say, well, let's look at that thing and just throw ourselves away. We look in the mirror and we say, okay, you could have done this better or fix this or do that, and we fix it. Because we know when we look in the mirror, I'm looking at myself. When we can remove the influence of the body by expanding and increasing, intensifying the energy or the use of our soul, then we'll be able to see more and more. That when I look out in the world, I only see one person, me, reflected in 8 billion mirrors. When you look out at the world, you'll only see one person reflected in over 8 billion mirrors. But you'll have that same desire to help fix, not just throw away, those things that you don't like. So the only fight we have is we often say it's here in our head, consciousness is everything, between the voice of our soul and the voice and essence of our ego / body consciousness. So from Adam and Eve forward, that's what caught them. They got caught up in the body consciousness, and there's been a fight between the body and the soul ever since. It's not a fight between people. It never has been and never will be a fight between people. Am I saying that nobody does a negative action? No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying, and I want to keep emphasizing over and over until we truly come not just to believe it, but to engrave it in our heart and soul, that it becomes every action that we do. There is only one soul in the world. There is only one creator, and we're all part of that one united soul. So then our job is removing the layers of body consciousness, the fear, the anger, the insecurity, the guilt, the shame, whatever, that are separating you, me, from the 8 billion people on the planet. And that's all we're here to do. That's what our tikkun, that's what the Kabbalists call what most of you might consider karma. That's our tikkun process. Correction. Tikkun means to correct. Take away the veils. Take away the layers of negativity. Let the light of our soul shine out. When the light shines, you see everything clearly. Then you know that everybody is you. And when you're pointing your finger at somebody because they're being a drama king or queen, you know you have to look inside you and say, how are you doing the same thing? Because you're looking in the mirror. May not be in the same way they do, but it's still of the same consciousness of drama. You point your finger at somebody and say, oh, they're big show-off. Look at how you're a show-off in your own way, in your own style, but a show-off nonetheless. That is not just a nice Kabbalistic principle. It's the most powerful and effective way to achieve our perfection with mercy. Because it also can happen with judgment. The world's being beaten to a pulp. We can let that happen for another couple centuries, or we can decide to speed up the process by looking at the world as our mirror and therefore accelerating the process of living a life of peace and harmony and eternal bliss, which is what the Creator gave us. So some people over the years, they say, well, has anybody achieved that? And because I was just visiting them, that's what I thought I was inspired to share with you today. There are people that we call tzadikim, means righteous people. A tzadik is a righteous person. So if we think about what does a righteous person mean, it doesn't mean somebody who's necessary, like holy and blessed by God. Which one of us are not blessed by God? If we're in the image and likeness of the Creator, of God itself, then we're all blessed by God. What we do with that blessing, what we've done with that power, is we've created a mess down here. But we're still blessed by the Creator, because that's all the Creator knows is blessings, is light. The Creator doesn't know chaos. The Creator doesn't know negativity. The Creator doesn't know division. Metaphorically, as the Creator looks in this world, just sees one perfect being living in heaven on earth. It's only you and I who've disconnected from that vision of the Creator and that power that we have that can see the chaos and experience the pain and suffering and death. So the righteous people, the tzaddikim, are the ones who have achieved the removal of all their layers of negativity. And how did they do it? They did it by identifying what the layer is. Being willing to acknowledge, okay, right now they're acting with ego. How do they remove the layer of ego? By bringing the light of humility to overcome the darkness of the cover, the veil, the layer of ego. They allow the light of appreciation and gratitude for their blessings, no matter what they are, no matter how big or small they may be, will overcome and transmute the layer, will remove that layer of jealousy that's covering their soul and causing them discord, unhappiness, disappointment, whatever, a sense of lack and emptiness. Because when the light shines, there's no emptiness. When the light is covered, then there's a sense of emptiness. So the great tzaddikim are the ones who are not the exception to the rule. They are the rule itself. They're the examples of what you, me, and 8 billion people on the planet are able and are meant to achieve in this world. The only reason we came out of the endless world into this world was to be able to imitate the Creator 24/7, meaning shining our light out 24/7. But as the story goes, and we've learned, we've covered ourselves with all those layers, so our correction process is removing those layers. And they've removed them by identifying them over and over and over till they're back to their pure beingness, till it's only the light of the Creator shining out of them. We can do the same thing. But what I wanted to share with you is a few stories of the righteous people, one hopefully to inspire us at things we are capable to do, but also to understand whatever different facets of what being righteous means. So one of my favorite, one of my favorite, I got a list of favorites, but one of my favorite Kabbalists to tell stories about is the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov essentially, if you will, started the ultimate path that the center is a part of the lineage. Because at the time of the Baal Shem Tov, people who claimed to be righteous people, or let's not even say righteous, holy scholars, were the people who were intellectually understanding what we might even call Kabbalistic wisdom. So, then I have to tell you this story first. So the Baal Shem Tov, he was all about happiness and joy. At that time, people who thought they were very intellectually holy, they would walk around with rocks in their shoes. They would live on bread and water all week. They would beat the body into submission. That's what they thought. The Baal Shem Tov came along and said, no, God is happiness. If you're putting rocks in your shoes and you're fasting this, you're walking around somber. You're walking around in pain. That's not the Creator. So, of course, when he first brought this out, everybody was against him. Who is this guy? He's a charlatan. They made fun of him, all kinds of things. But ultimately, many of them, over time and seeing the miracles he could create by simply being happy, and happiness is a way to channel the light of the Creator into this world, they were drawn to him. So one particular story, there was one of the more well-known rabbis of the time, who again was one of those very intellectual, knowledgeable men, let's put it that way. And so the Baal Shem Tov was always looked at up until this time, as like a cartoon character sort of thing. Who is this clown going around happiness and singing and this, and that's the way to God, and So one day, this wise man, Rabbi Dov Ber, he was sick and he couldn't heal this sickness. So his wife kept telling him, why don't you go to the Baal Shem Tov? Go to the Baal Shem Tov. I hear he can perform miracles. And this guy going, come on, this clown, he can't do anything. And finally, the pain was so much, and his wife's, forgive me, but nagging was so much, he said, okay, I'll go. So he takes a 3-day journey to go visit the Baal Shem Tov, and he comes to the Baal Shem Tov, and he meets the Baal Shem Tov, and he's expecting, like him, a wise, intellectual man. He sees a little, happy guy, looks like a commoner. In the first conversation, he looks at him, he's waiting to hear words of wisdom from the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov looks at, when we were in the carriage riding, and the horses got hungry, so we stopped to feed the horses, and we found a little river and gave them some water and this, and the horses were happy and joyous, and then we could go on with the journey. And you can imagine this guy, Rabbi Dov Ber, almost pulling his hair out. Why did I come this way? I'm not studying. I could be studying instead of listening to this foolishness like this. So he takes off, he goes into his room, and he calls his driver. He says, let's go, we're leaving. And his driver says, look, it's so late, we can't leave now. There could be robbers on the road, this, that, other thing. He says, stay. Okay, so he says he'll stay. He's studying during the night. In the middle of the night, the assistant of the Baal Shem Tov knocks on the door of Rabbi Dov Ber. He says, my master would like to see you. Okay, so he comes to meet him again, and he says, you know, I forgot to tell you. When we were feeding the horses, that, and he goes on with a little of that. He said, that's it. And he goes back to his room upset. A couple hours later, it's still the middle of the night. He gets another knock on the door. He says, my master wants to see you. Please come. He says, no, I've been enough like this. A little. He says, okay. So he comes. So he walks into the room with the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov hands him a book. Happened to be a book of Rabbi Isaac Luria, the great Ari, the holy lion of Kabbalah. He says, do you know this book? Rabbi, of course I do. He says, here, open it up. The Baal Shem Tov opens it up to a section on angels. He says, can you read this and explain it to me? So he opens it up and he's reading the names of angels and what they do and this and this and this and this. And the Baal Shem Tov takes the book, he takes it out of his hand and he said, no, it's all wrong. And he's looking at him, like, who in the world are you, this clown, charlatan, to tell me, the wise man of the generation, I don't know what I'm talking about? So the Baal Shem Tov opens up the book and he reads the name of an angel. Whoosh, the angel shows up, an angel of light in the room. Another one, another angel, till this Rabbi Dov Ber, he falls over, faints. He's never seen angels like this. So when he finally wakes up, the Baal Shem Tov looks at him and he says, yes, everything you said was right, but you were saying with the brain. If you don't open your heart, you're not going to get the angels to come to you. And of course, at that minute, he became ultimately not only a disciple of the Baal Shem Tov, but he became the successor. When the Baal Shem Tov left the world, he became the successor of the Baal Shem Tov. But this was the Baal Shem Tov, all open heart, and like Karen said, open our eyes to see things around him. So sometimes it doesn't look so nice either, and this is why we learn you have to open your eyes of your heart, because not everything that looks like a challenge. I mean, before Kabbalah, a challenge was not something I looked forward to. Since Kabbalah, it's something that I happily look forward to, and I even look for ways to create my own challenges for myself. Because we've come to understand that a challenge is just our soul's light wanting to come back to us, but covered in the veil, in the layer of whatever we covered it with: fear, anger, jealousy, greed, ego, insecurity, etc. So one story of the Baal Shem Tov, who was also, the story was that he never kept money in his house. People would come and ask him for blessings, and they give money for this and for the whatever, but every time he'd pay his bill, and then he'd give the rest for whatever the need of the community was. If somebody needed to get married, back then they had debtors prison, if not, somebody needed to be taken out of prison like this. So he wasn't like somebody, who was stingy or whatever. So one day he takes his disciples, because he'd always get a message, you have to go here or there, and he would follow those messages. So he goes to this house of a poor farmer. He had a milk cow, and that was basically the sustenance of the family, this milk cow. Very poor. He walks in with a couple of his disciples, and this farmer knew who the Baal Shem Tov was, so he's very happy that he's coming to visit. And he took anything he had in the cabinets, everything, just to, give him something in honor of the Baal Shem Tov. And so the Baal Shem Tov's eating, and the students are watching him. He's like eating, like devouring. He says, do you have any more? More. And he's eating, till there's literally nothing in the house. These poor people are poor anyway. They gave the last of what they had. He said, no. Is there more? Do you have more? So the only thing we have is the milk cow. He says, go slaughter the milk cow. I'm still hungry. And he literally eats them like out of the milk cow. Thank you very much. They finish the meal and they go away. So as they're going, of course, the students of the Baal Shem Tov, they said, why would you do this? This is not you. You ate him out of everything. These poor people, what are they going to do? And he says, no. He says, I was given the message the angel of death was after the wife. So I gave them the cow in substitution. So sometimes when you see a truly righteous person do something that looks out of character, if they're truly righteous, it's because we can't see what they're really doing. And so in our level, it's learning, I have heard it all my life. Never judge a book by its cover. Now I hope we have a deeper understanding of that. In other words, even in your and my life, how many of us are good people? I didn't say yet righteous, but good people. Are you righteous? Are you a good person? Are you a good person? Are you a good person? Right? We're good people. If you're connected here to the center or spiritual, of course you're a good person. But how many have you ever lost your temper with somebody that you love or care about? I don't know, said something because you were stressed out that wasn't so nice or kind towards somebody that you love or you have a good relationship? Yes or no? Yes. Great. I gave you a choice, but it's really, of course we do, right? But really, now if you think of that from your side, when you let that word go out of your mouth, was it because you were really looking at them and saying it about them? Or was it coming out of your mouth from the stress, from your own frustration with something in your life, etc.? It really wasn't about them. Yeah, the words came out, oh, Joe, Mary, whatever it was, but it wasn't really. So we need to take that, because we all have that experience many times over. And when that other person says something that sounds personal about you, you need to learn what we start in Kabbalah 1 with. Pause. It's not really personal. Don't take it personal. They're stressed out. They had a bad day at work. They got in a fight with somebody. They lost some money. They lost their job. In some way, shape, or form, they're feeling stressed out, and the words just came out of their mouth with the help of that parasitic AI programming called the opponent in their head. Don't take it personally, but pause, send them light. Send them light. Help awaken the light to fulfill their sense of emptiness so they won't continue to do those things. That's how we can begin imitating the righteous people. I wrote a lot of stories. I don't think we're going to get to all of them. So there's another story. There were two holy brothers. Actually, they were students of this Rabbi Dov Ber. He was ultimately called the Maggid of Mizrich. Rabbi Elimelech and Rabbi Zusha, two brothers. We call them the Holy Brothers. They made a pact in the beginning of their spiritual journey that no matter what happened, they were always going to tell the truth to each other. No matter what, whatever the consequences, their pact with each other was to always tell the truth. So there were times when they would go out, even when they became known as truly righteous people, they would dress themselves up as common beggars, and they would go out into what we might call self-imposed exile. They'd go around in different parts, and this is, of course, in the 1700s. They go around parts of Poland, Ukraine, like that, as beggars. Just one, to break their own ego, purify themselves, and two, to see the miracles and wonders that the Creator's light would perform for them. So one story goes, they were out in this self-imposed exile, so they looked like, common people, whatever, and they're at an inn, having their meal, whatever it is, and in comes this group of ruffians, we might call them. And so they go off to the side, and these ruffians having a good time. They're drinking, and they're drunk, and they're rowdy, and this and this. And so they grab Rab Zusha. They see him and they say, oh, let's grab this poor guy. And they pick him up and they swing him around and they beat him a little bit. And they're swinging and dancing, like making fun of him and this and this and this. And Rab Zusha going with it because he knows it's coming from the light of the Creator. No accidents like this. So, swing around, whatever, beat him. They get tired. They throw him aside. He goes to his brother. They're like hiding under a bench now. Right? And the guys go back to drinking and rowdy and whatever. And Rab Zusha looks, Rabbi Elimelech, his brother, looks and say, look, let's switch places, so that if they come for you again, you won't have to take it again. Right? The Rab Zusha said, well, whatever the Creator wants, like whatever is the right thing is going to happen. So of course, here's Rabbi Elimelech. So after a while, the rowdy people come and they look and they say, let's go make some more fun of that beggar. And they see now there's two beggars. So they say, oh no, we made fun of the first one already. Let's take the one behind him, which was Rab Zusha again. And he says to his brother, see, whatever's the right thing to happen is the right thing to happen. So one, you and I need to understand everything that comes to us is exactly cause and effect, that we need the challenge, we need the situation, we need whatever the circumstances are for our opportunity to grow in our righteousness, to grow in the revelation of our light, because as we said, a righteous person is someone who's removed all their layers and they're shining 100%. So, let's see, we have one more story. Okay, so no matter what, we want to be willing to make those efforts. If it's uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable. But at least if we face our discomfort, those uncomfortable situations, with the light and with appreciation for the opportunity of removing the layers that are causing us chaos, pain, and suffering, if I can remove it, then I have less pain and suffering and less chaos. I'm shining more light, closer to my potential. Now, the couple that, well, this one is pretty extreme, but these people were on that level. And so again, our job is not to imitate exactly their actions, but to do a similar act in our level, what's expected of our spiritual strength. So, in fact, you all know that the ultimate mission of the center is to spread the Zohar, whether it's a piece of the entire Zohar called the pocket Zohar, or the whole set, or whatever it is, spread the Zohar. It's the most powerful instrument of light. Enough light in the world, no more darkness. So the way the Zohar came into physicality, because it was given to Moses on Mount Sinai, but orally. It wasn't put in writing until about 1,400 years later by Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. How did that happen? When the Romans were persecuting all the Kabbalists and not allowing them to teach Kabbalah, so some of them were killed. Rabbi Akiva, he was killed what looked like, again, on the outside, a horrible death. They tied him down, and they peeled his skin layer by layer by layer by layer. But the Kabbalists teach, you have to see through that story. The Kabbalists say, Rabbi Akiva was like, at the very last, he was, let's say, 99.999%. He had one little piece left to do, and in his mind, in his awareness, the piece was being willing to give up his life for the Creator, for the sake of the light. So when the Romans, so when the Romans grabbed him and tied him down, one of his students came to him and he says, Master, call down the angels, destroy the Romans. What are you doing here? And he says to his student, get away from me, you snake. This is why I came into the world. So the Kabbalists teach that the moment they took the first piece of skin, that's when his soul left, because he completed his correction process, right? Had he wiped out the Romans and got away, it'd still only be 99.99. He'd have to do it another way. So he's willing, and then as the Kabbalists teach, essentially what they were looking at was like I guess we'd call a modern version of a robot. So the robot was flailing and screaming and this, but Rabbi Akiva was already gone. His soul was gone, and it was just whatever you want to call it, a zombie flailing and looking like I was tormented. At that time, Rabbi Shimon, who was a student of Rabbi Akiva, he and his son fled to northern Israel, and they hid themselves in a cave in Peki'in. They buried themselves for 12 years, up to their neck in the dirt, except for the Sabbath, Shabbat. Then they would get out, they would connect to the light of Shabbat, and then they'd bury themselves again 12 years. Why? Just a quick understanding. Because when Moses was on Mount Sinai, he received the 5 books of Moses, the written work at that time, and the Zohar, but the Zohar was given orally. Because he was, let's call it, completely revealed to the world. Head, shoulders, body, feet. When Rabbi Shimon and his son went into the dirt up to the neck, they essentially, on a spiritual level, grounded, meaning disconnected from the body consciousness. And all that was left was this consciousness, the spirit consciousness, like the crown chakra they call it, or Keter in Kabbalistic terms, was open to download the Zohar. And that's why the Zohar is the ultimate blueprint of the universe. You read the 5 books of Moses, it contradicts itself, it tells horrible stories. My teachers, the Rav and Karen, used to say, you can validate any horrible thing you want to do by a Bible story out of the 5 books. Rape, murder, robbery. You can look at stories that seem to say righteous people did those terrible things. That's why the Zohar is the only thing that will help make sense of the world, because it gives us the deep understanding of what the rules of the cosmos are teaching us and what the book of the 5 books is really trying to say. It's written in a coded way. So where the code says, God told Moses, walk into the land of Israel and wipe out everybody who lived there, it wasn't on a physical massacre. But if you look at history, a lot of people, all religions at one point or another, decided they would take something along those lines from the Bible and say, well, their religion is right. God told them to wipe out everybody who's not that religion. And they went out and committed genocide. So today, in my vision, you can't point at any religion. It may be the religion of the day that's doing something, but you go back in history, every religion's done it. It's just the same thing happening over and over and over again. So we've got to stop pointing our fingers out at everybody else and start seeing the mirror and how I can change myself. Because what the righteous people are giving us is an opportunity to do the same things they did, draw on their power, but in our level. So some of you know, I posted one picture. I just came back from Poland in visiting what we call energy vortexes, which are the graves of the righteous people. Why? Because when a person achieves their 100%, the body is no longer have any negative influence. The body doesn't drag them into any aspect of fear, anger, ego, etc. So when the body goes in the grave, the body does not disintegrate. Unfortunately, the way it had to be proven, but it has been proven, and I went to go visit one of them this time, Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk, one of the Holy Brothers. So the stories from the Holocaust, from the World War II, the Nazis came and were desecrating all the Jewish cemeteries. And they heard there was this one grand rabbi, was buried in this place, whatever. And they figured, well, what better place to hide the jewels and the gold and all the riches than in the grave of the righteous. So they went to go break the grave of Rabbi Elimelech. And when they broke down to the coffin and opened the coffin, and this is now from the early 1700s to the mid 1900s, so it's over 200 years, the body was complete. And it scared them so much, they closed the grave and they ran, because you never see something like that. And there are other stories in Morocco. There were stories similar. I think it was Morocco in the North Africa, where they did similar things. And they found also people who were known as righteous people, as Tzadikim, their bodies were complete. So it has been proven. So the bottom line is, the reason that we go to visit them is because when their body's put in the grave, there's a small piece of their soul that stays in that body, because it's the energy of the soul that keeps the body whole, like you and I. What makes our body function is the light of the soul. Illness, ailment, death is ultimately when a person created so many layers that, one, the body doesn't function properly, therefore we call it illness and ailment. And that's why when you remove the layers, you can heal. And ultimately, death is when there are so many layers that there's no more ability of the light of the soul to get to the body, and the soul leaves. And when the soul leaves, there's no energy to run the body anymore. So you go because the gravestone is like a cell phone, in our terms, to the soul of that righteous person. So when we go to visit these various graves, it's to draw their support. So let's say like with Rabbi Shimon, you would go to let's say with that Rabbi Elimelech, because I went there. Rabbi Elimelech, like we said, he and his brother would go into self-imposed exile. They would overcome. There's a story, Rabbi Elimelech, after he became famous. So one day he was coming back from one of his, exiles. And so he looked like a beggar. And as he's coming back to his town, some person was coming to visit the great, Kabbalist Elimelech, Rabbi Elimelech, right? And never seen him before. So he comes to this guy, they happen to be eating in the same place or walking in the same place, and he sees the beggar. And the beggar looks at the guy and says, "What are you doing here?" He says, "Oh, I'm coming to see the great Rabbi Elimelech." He says, "Oh, you mean that charlatan, that guy, a faker like this?" And the guy looks at him, "What's wrong with you, you stupid man?" And starts slapping him. "Go away. How dare you, besmirch somebody's reputation, this great, Kabbalist, da-da-da-da." Okay, so he goes away. So, of course, a few hours later, when he goes to have his audience with Rabbi Elimelech, and he walks in and he sees the beggar, but now finally dressed, he says, "Oh my God, I didn't know it was you." He comes to beg forgiveness. "I didn't know. He says, "No." He says, "We were both right." He says, "You were right about the righteousness, but I was also right about the other things." Because on the higher level, he was able to see all the tiny little defects. In other words, if you really want to get, like I told you, scraping the paint off the wall of my grandmother's house, at some point you say, okay, a little dot here and a little dot here, you got 99.9% is enough. But to truly be a tzaddik, a righteous person, those little pieces are the last pieces you get rid of. Rabbi Akiva, that last little piece. Rabbi Elimelech, his light was so bright, he could see what nobody else could see about himself. A little bit, a tiny, even a fleeting thought, let's call it, of ego. A fleeting thought of insecurity, whatever. And therefore, he said to this man, "We're both right. I can see the faults that are still left, tiny, microscopic, and you see the righteous person that you're standing in front of." So we want to draw on their support, which is why we go, whether it's in the Poland, Ukraine, whether it's in Italy, whether it's in Israel, South Africa, Morocco, Spain. There's a few places that some of the Kabbalists are spread out. But it's to go to the energy vortex that they've left us so that we can draw on their support to be able to share when we're not feeling like sharing. Because ultimately, that's the bottom line. We may not be able to do exactly what they do, but we can do something similar in our level. They overcome their ego. Yeah, they're maybe on this level way up here. We overcome our ego. That's us. Because in the end of the story, when a person goes upstairs, nobody asks us, "Why weren't you somebody else?" Person goes up to the upper world, nobody says, "Joe, why weren't you Moses? Why weren't you one of the matriarchs?" No. Why weren't you the Joe that God created? So our job is just to be the complete tzaddik that we are. And there's a verse in the Zohar that I was reminded of yesterday that basically says, because sometimes we look and we say, okay, even in this lifetime, forget past lifetimes, we can look at this lifetime and we say, "Oh, but I did this horrible thing, and I did this horrible thing, and I did this horrible thing. I could never, heaven forbid, but I could never be a righteous person." No. So the verse in the Zohar says two things in one. One, if you stop to think about it, it's true. Light can only be revealed out of darkness. Where there's already light in a room, in essence, you don't reveal more light, so to speak. You can only reveal light where there's darkness. So it says, when a person turns from their negative ways, like you and I are doing, and turns to the path of the light and transforms some of our negative behavior into positive behavior, then in essence, it says metaphorically, the Creator celebrates. The Creator has joy at that transformation. So it's not like whatever we've done, that's it, we're stuck with it. Physics tells us energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. What you and I are learning here in the Kabbalah Center is how to transform the darkness to light, the chaos to order, the jealousy to appreciation, the ego to humility, the sense of poverty or greed, lack consciousness into generosity and charitable, resentment and compassion, anger into patience, kindness. That's what we're learning. And that's what will let us reveal the righteous person within us, because there's not a person on earth who hasn't been created by God to be righteous. So as the Kabbalists teach us, every one of us affects all humanity with every action, with every thought. So that when enough of us unite in the actions of transformation, our darkness to light, our chaos to order, when we achieve then by that unity of action and consciousness a critical mass of light in the world, then the world's veils are removed. Every person will be led by their soul's light to do their acts of transformation. And when we have enough people removing the veils of earth, then we will all see what's always been true, what's always been here. We will see the heaven on earth that the Creator created this world to be, that we call the Garden of Eden. And we will all live in peace and love and unity in that Garden of Eden for eternity. God bless. Amen, amen. Okay. So, 1, thank you for being here. 2, this is the time of our offering, and it is, again, a free will offering, but it's 1, simple, to appreciate what you've gained from what we learn on Sundays, what we learn from the center. So we always like to take this time and do a meditation. So everything is consciousness. And know that you're supporting the projects of the center, not just the Spiritual Sunday, which is also the Zohar Project, the Scholarship Project. We also have now a recovery. We have a Kabbalistic recovery program for people who are caught up in addictions. We have the Roots program for children, teenagers, so that we can teach children not to fall into the traps that maybe you and I have had fallen into, but they can go directly from no free will until they're 12 or 13, that when the free will kicks in, they'll go right into being more righteous, kind, loving, compassionate, and revealing their potential much more quickly. So those of you online, you could do the meditation, and then we have, as usual, one of the 72 names coming afterwards. Those of you here, if you hold your offering in your hand, money is simply a vessel. It will achieve according to the energy that we put in it. So we take this moment to put in our love, our gratitude, our compassion, and our care, with a stronger desire to live as the tzaddikim. Love your neighbor as yourself. They saw the light in everyone. They connected to the light in everyone. They awakened the light in everyone. And so as we support the projects of the center, which reach out to the heart and soul of all humanity, we're empowering and accelerating the process of removing the layers of negativity that have been hiding the righteousness of each person and hiding heaven on earth from the vast majority of the people on the planet. And so we send this offering out into the world, that we can see the end of pain, suffering, and death through the spread of the Zohar and this wisdom in our lifetime. And we know whatever it is we give, whatever we put out into the world, come back to us many, many times over. Together we say, Amen. Okay. So those of you here, you see in front of you, those of you online, these are 3 Hebrew or Aramaic letters, the Mem, the Yud, and the Chaf. They're one of the 72 names of God. Hebrew letters are not a construct of humanity. They are primordial. They are manifestations of various frequencies of the light of the Creator when it comes into this world. Similar to the white light, when it's put through a prism, we see the 7 colors of the rainbow. So when the light of the Creator comes into the prism called the physical universe, It's separated into 22 frequencies and shapes that we call the Hebrew letters or the Aramaic letters. So this combination then, as the Rav would call them, nanoparticles of light, Mem Yud Chaf, will awaken the power of revealing the concealed within us, or relative to what we said today, revealing the righteousness, our true light, God-given potential. So the key is, since eyes are the window to the soul, just let the shapes of the letter Mem Yud Chaf be engraved in your mind's eye. Mem Yud Chaf, because as they channel light through the eyes, it activates the light in our soul, and in this case, awakening that pure righteous being within us. Okay. So if I can ask you, sit comfortably in your seat, hands on your lap, feet flat on the floor, taking a few deep breaths, breathing in through the nose, hold the breath for a moment, exhale through the mouth. Allowing a circulation not only of the physical air, but also the breath of life, the light force that exists in the air. Breathing in through the nose, let the energy circulate through the body, and exhale through the mouth, letting go of all the tension, any stress, any blockage that might be in your mind or your heart right now. Allow yourself to relax into the peace, the embrace of unconditional love of the light in you and all around you. Allowing the light to open up the eyes of your heart and the gates around your soul. Let your mind be open to the guidance and the inspiration, the words that come from your soul that wants to guide each and every one of us into our perfect righteousness. And so let's envision, as you return to your normal breathing, envision the Mem Yud Chaf above your head. See each of those shapes shining with the light of the Creator. Feel the vibration that's emanating from them, the power of revealing the righteous person within you. And slowly let the Mem Yud Chaf enter through the top of your head. Let it come to the consciousness of the light of the Creator of your soul. Increasing the volume of the voice of your soul over the voice of the opponent. Listen to the inspiration, the guidance that your soul is speaking to you. How to solve the challenges in your life with the light, which direction to go where you've been confused. Let the Mem Yud Chaf continue to spread its light and energy through the rest of your body, from head to toe. Allowing it to settle in your heart Opening up the eyes of your heart, expanding your capacity to love other people, all other people, by reminding yourself that there really is only one soul, and we are all part of that one collective human being. And so, with the guidance from our soul and the love, as we open the gates and the eyes of our heart, we extend light through all the 8.5 billion physical bodies in the world. Awakening the righteousness in each person. Mem Yud Chaf, extended out to all humanity, awakening that light that reveals itself to the heart, the mind, and the soul of each person. That every person on earth today, because of our love and our unity, and the power we're sending out into the world through the Mem Yud Chaf, that each person, all humanity, having an awakening to the righteousness within them, a clearer, more conscious awareness of the peace of the Creator that's been implanted in their heart and soul. Let's see together in our mind's eye all humanity, all beings on this planet, having awakening and inspiration and a greater enthusiasm to behave with greater love and kindness and compassion towards all human beings. Feel this greater sense of peace and clarity and trust in the light that's been awakened in each of us. And let's commit ourselves to grow and expand this consciousness, strength of the light in us, to transform our negative to positive, all of our reactive behaviors into proactive actions, removing the veils and the curtains hiding our soul's light, allowing more and more of our true righteousness to shine into the world, that we become greater examples, role models for people around us to come to this wisdom and understanding that the light is the only power to remove darkness and chaos and pain and suffering from the world. And that we are each filled with that light, and making this commitment to reveal more and more of it each and every day. And combining our hearts and souls together with all the other people on earth doing the same thing, drawing the power and the support of the righteous people, the power of the light through the Zohar, to accelerate this process of revealing the righteousness, the true, pure, and perfect beings of light the Creator created us to be. And envisioning ourselves living in peace, love, and unity in heaven on earth, the Garden of Eden. Record whatever you've seen or heard, that it's engraved in your heart, your soul, and your mind. To always have a support, to use it as a support for your growing certainty in the light, through the challenges and through the darkness that we must face to reveal more of our soul's light. Holding the power of unity, connecting ourselves to the light of the one soul that's in all people. And together we take one more deep breath to anchor this all inside our heart, soul, and mind. And slowly exhale and open your eyes. So have a great week. God bless, and see you next week.
Thank you for joining us. If you liked what you saw, subscribe to this channel that you'll be notified when we post new videos. Share the video with your friends, they can also benefit. And check out the website, www.kabbalah.com, that's Kabbalah, for hundreds of articles and classes. Wish you an amazing day, and God bless.